Hey Nerdpreneurs, in this interview we spoke with Devon Chulick, COO of Start Playing.Games, and we covered some amazing and important stuff. Just to list some of it, Chris, he gets razzed real good right in the opening. Then we dive into why Start Playing.Games is so perfect for pro GMs. We talked about how Devon became a pro GM, his side project, Total Party Chill, the tabletop role-playing game studio that he's a part of, how you too can get started as or ensure the continued success of you becoming a pro GM on Start Playing.Games, the how-tos and importance of picking the right co-founder for your nerdpreneuring enterprise, how he and his co-founder at Start Playing.Games got $6.5 million in seed funding, his main habits for generating revenue, how you too can start to build a brand and a community, and of course, we had to ask him about his opinions on Wizards' OGL debacle of January 2023. So we talked about a lot of stuff there and even more that I didn't mention. And finally, this is an abridged version of the interview. For the full interview in video or podcast form, visit us over on Patreon and become a member of the board. All right, that's enough talking. Now let's get to the interview.
Here's the thing. I like Devon though. I think it sounds cool. It makes me sound very like maybe royal or something. It's very out of vogue though to be royal.
Yeah, Devon comes with a crown, I think.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's a heavy one too. I don't know if I have the shoulders to bear that.
It's all right. Devons are usually way more down to earth and cool, so that's probably more approachable. Honestly.
Absolutely. And I've met Devons that spelled a lot of ways. I'm an ON, but I met a YN the other day.
What? That's like sacrilege.
I know, DEVYN.
Well, as a Chris, I have opinions on how people spell their name, and those people with a K, just wrong. It's just not right. Okay, if you're KRIS, that's like it looks like you didn't graduate kindergarten or something. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong.
My wife's name is Chris with a K.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding.
Jeez,
her name's Laura. It's I want to set the tone that we're good razzing each other.
All right, good.
That was it's so good. I was just, right there on the edge of my seat.
These are the things that I often do. Is I'll just say things like I'll start slamming Scientology, and then all of a sudden they're like, "I'm a Scientologist." I'm like,
Chris will definitely just barge into a room Kramer style.
Well, it's because I'm aligned to principles, not people. So I can go into that more later. But yeah, I think that's the right way to move.
Yeah, Devon, I'll give you a quick overview of what to expect. So pretty much we are going to talk about the business. We're going to talk about how the business started. We're going to also, I'd like to make some time to talk about Total Party Chill at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plug that. The chance to really plug all of your handles and anything that you want to send people to, we will make space for that at the end when we're closing out. And there's going to be, the first section, which is the bulk of our interview, it's like about 2/3 is going to be all of that stuff. Okay. And then once we feel like we've kind of tapped the nuggets of wisdom out of that, we're going to move into what we call random rolls, which is you roll a D100, and based on the number, we have some questions that we will ask you, and they're typically pretty silly. Sometimes they're pretty serious, but mostly silly. And then
dice now. I need dice.
Yes,
you need
I'm
dice.
Such a fool. Hold on.
Okay. And then the last section after the random rolls is rapid fire. So we have a series of questions that we will go through. They're very short answer questions. And depending on whether you're right or wrong, we may have you elaborate. So that is the basic rundown. Do you have a hard stop time? I understand you're in San Francisco, so you're with PST, right?
Yes, same as you all, right?
Yes,
correct. We're in the northern part of California called Vancouver, and Seattle. At least that's where I'm at. He's over in Seattle. In Seattle.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to be in Seattle at the end of this month for ECC.
Oh,
ooh,
sick.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I think we're gonna do like a SPG meetup. So if y'all want to come out for drinks or something, let me know.
Heck
Sweet.
yeah.
I might. What's the exact dates on that? Because I might actually be. I'm thinking about going down there. So.
It's the last weekend or the first weekend in March.
Perfect. All right.
Yes,
That's
perfect.
probably better than February for me. So
Yeah. But as far as stop time, is there a hard stop time? We usually go 90 minutes, sometimes a tad over.
6. Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
all right, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. And if
Cool.
things are going, it's going to be, yeah, mostly it's just fun conversation. And also, like, we like to dig into the nitty gritty of business stuff. So,
I got
anything
dashboards up.
wonderful. Anything
Sick.
you want to go over, we can dig in more with it. Or if there's anything that you're like, I don't like the way I said that, just go back. I edit everything. This isn't like a stream. This isn't live to air. I go through and try to make everybody sound real good on the mic afterwards. So if you want to re-say something, just let us know.
But
I appreciate that.
I assume you're streaming, right? To all of your people right now?
Right now, everyone.
Excellent.
Yeah, perfect. We should definitely go live.
Oh, great.
Killer.
Okay.
So I'll do a little intro and just, I have a little intro I do. I'll throw it to you to say hi, and then I will go into asking you, what is your nerdy passion? And that's where we kind of get into the interview questions and stuff. So
Okay, perfect.
the only thing is just so I know and make sure, when I refer to your business, it's just Start Playing Games? Is that how I refer to it?
Website is startplaying.games, but we just call it Start Playing.
Start Playing. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. How we looking, Frank?
We are green.
All right. Sweet. Welcome to Nerdpreneur, where we have fun conversations with people making money from their nerdy passion. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Frank.
Hello.
And today we have a very special guest. His name is Devon from StartPlaying.Games. Welcome to Nerdpreneur.
Thank you for having me. I'm so stoked to be here, y'all.
Awesome. We are stoked to have you here, man. So, as we always start off our questions, Devon, what is your nerdy passion?
Tabletop gaming. Absolutely love it. Can't get enough of it.
Love it. And I love how you said tabletop gaming and not just Dungeons and Dragons. It sounds to me like you cover a gamut of games, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've played. Before I even played D&D, I remember this is actually how I got into tabletop gaming. I was like 7 years old, maybe 8 years old. My mother, she read this book to me. It was a choose your own adventure book, but there was a dice rolling component to it. So it was like a solo RPG, and she would read it because those words were too big. I was too small. And I got to like roll the dice, and she would like tell me the outcome. It was so fun. That was like my first foray into gaming. And then like, D&D became a part of that later. But I mean, like, there's too many amazing games out there.
Those choose your own adventure books used to be like the rage. I remember reading those when I was a kid too, and thinking to myself, oh, this is so cool. It's a different thing every time. And they could get pretty intense too with some of the decisions you make. I think it taught people consequences, which is fundamental to tabletop role-playing games.
You never want to get the Yeti. You never want to get the Yeti. If your page has the Yeti on it, you're screwed.
The Yeti.
Quickly go back to the previous page, do it over again.
The Yeti's such a deep cut. Like 8 people will get that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't get that. I'm not sure if I can be on with that. But
so was that? Does that mean that your mom was the first game master for you?
My mom was my first game master. Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Thanks, Mom.
I've told this story so many times. I never realized that.
That sounds like a pretty cool mom. That's awesome.
You can make a good argument for that being your mom being the first game master. Or, I know some people listening are going to say, but the book really was the one telling the story. But
oh yeah, but I mean, like, she fudged rolls. I was 7,
True.
Like my bad decision. She's like, oh, you fell unconscious. You got to do it again. Okay.
I think that's a house rule. If your mom's the game master, she can fudge the roll.
It was like gentle parenting and game mastering. It was like gentle game mastering.
Wow.
Did your mom play a part in your games growing up?
That was the last time. Which is funny to think about. Like I this core memory got unlocked like recently because people were like, well, how was your experience? Like, actually, this was my first experience with gaming, and I completely had forgotten about it till like a few years ago when something prompted it out of thin air, and I remembered, oh yeah, like that thing. That was really my first tabletop experience.
Like
That's
an
so cool.
Inside Out scene. You know, the emotions interacting and stumbling on this core memory orb.
Absolutely.
So Start Playing Games or Start Playing.Games. Can you explain a little bit just for our listeners who maybe aren't in the tabletop space specifically, just what is this business?
Yeah, we are the Airbnb for tabletop gaming. If you've always wanted to play a game, but the schedule not worked out with your friends, or you don't know where to start, there are a bunch of professional game masters that use our platform to advertise their games, where you can join and you can see the different play styles and the different type of games they're running, and you could join those games. And then we kind of handle all of the organization stuff, and then the GM just runs an amazing game. So you could stop wanting to play games and you could start playing games.
Ah,
See what I did there? It's a little tie-in for the name. That's why I named it that.
well, and what I love is that you acknowledge one of the biggest barriers for people is one, they don't have a dungeon master or a game master to run their game. Which is the biggest common thing. There's so many people I meet, even just at bars or in my casual meeting of people, that are like, hold on, you know how to run a game? Can you run a game for me? And I'm like, I already have like 2 games I'm running. I wish, So there's that. I love that you're connecting dungeon masters or game masters and players. And the other side of it is the scheduling. You brought that up. It's like sometimes the time doesn't work. So many people I know run into that barrier where even when you get people ready to play who want to start playing and are committed to it, how do you find the time to actually do it so it's consistent every single week or every single month? So here, my first question, I guess, diving into Start Playing Games, is that how do you find the dungeon masters? Or how do you find the game masters, and is there a vetting process to that?
Yeah. So, this might be a little long-winded, so let me tell you how.
That's what podcasts are for.
Right? So before Start Playing, I was running a lot of D&D games. I had just kind of gotten back into it. I had played 3.5 and 5e came out, and I was like, I'm going to try out the new version. And so I had some friends together, and it just kind of exploded. Like, I brought these new friends in, they loved it, and then I realized I was running maybe 3 learn to play games a week for friends. And then, like 2 years later, someone was like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. My work would love this. Would you run one for like my coworkers at our office? And I was like, I don't know your coworker. I don't want to do that. And thinking in my head, and then they said, our budget for things like this is around $500. And I was like, that's so weird. That's what I charge.
Whoa.
What a coincidence. And so I did this. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. And I thought to myself, I wonder if more people would pay for, a GM, because I was just, I can't do all these games. And so I made a website, and within like 2-3 weeks, I had another 2 bookings. And then the next month I had 4 bookings, and it just, started to grow from there. And so I started writing all these games for people, and it was like, this mom and her 3 sons, and she wanted to do like a family thing together with them, like team building events for, like Google. And it became really, really fun. But then I ended up getting written up in Bloomberg Business Week, and it was called The Rise of the Professional Dungeon Master. And it gave me all this press. It was really fantastic. But then I was getting maybe 6 emails a week from other game masters who wanted to do what I had done. And it was hard. It wasn't easy, because you had to know how to make a website, and you know how to do search engine optimization. There was a lot of things that from my day job as a product manager and working in commerce that I could translate very easily into being successful in getting players. GMs are great when it comes to the game, but there's all these other things you need to learn, from accounting to, building a website. So I started like a Facebook group, and then I started an email newsletter, and I was just kind of collecting GMs together and sharing insights and ideas. And when I started to Start Playing, I already had 700 GMs on this newsletter that were interested in, finding it ways to make it easier to be a pro GM. So that's where I started. And when you have 700 GMs, I think 100 signed up. And then things started to grow. And as we advertised, GMs would see this and be like, wait, this is a thing? And they would come to the website like, I want to be a GM. And they're like, this is amazing. I've always wanted to do this. And so we don't really advertise to GMs. We advertise to players, and GMs see that and they're like, I want to do that. I want to be a professional dungeon master. I want to be a professional keeper, professional game master, any of those things. And we don't have a vetting process. We have what's like your different type of reviews. Reviews are really important. We have like verified reviews. We have unverified reviews. So you can tell like, is this legitimate? But that means you can start like, even if you don't have a verified review from running a paid game yet, you can still say like, hey, these 6 people vouch for me. And then as you go on, you get more reviews as you have more players, and they become verified because they played in paid games. So that's currently how we use our vetting process is, are there people that would vouch for you? Do you have players that love playing with you? What do they have to say? And I think that's been really impactful because a lot of GMs are like, wow, I didn't know my players felt this way till I asked them.
Wow. That is so cool. I have so many follow-up questions that I'd love to dive into because you covered so much and I thought it was a great overview.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I definitely jumped right in there.
No, that's perfect. That's great. We want to get right to the meat of this. So first I want to start with, how did you get that Bloomberg article? Can you walk through that process of like, did they approach you? How did that happen?
Yeah. It had a little bit to do with the fact that I also, create content online in the tabletop space. I have a studio called Total Party Chill. We do actual plays, podcasts, things like that. That had my name out there a lot, and I was also one of the few people in the space that like had a website. It was easy to contact, and there was a lot of content around me already.
So when you say Total Party Chill, just what is that? Sorry, is that like a Facebook page or like what is it?
So yeah, great question. Total Party Chill, we are a tabletop RPG studio here in San Francisco. And in fact, for those that are watching this, I'll go ahead and this is the studio that I'm in right now. And this is where we produce
that's so cool.
Tabletop content, things like D&D actual plays, or tabletop RPG podcasts. We also, make little modules, things like that. So, it was kind of my creative endeavor because I wanted a way to, make stuff in tabletop because it interests me and I love it. And it was a hobby, but it became so much more. But because there was already so much content out there, when the writers were looking for people in this story, it was very easy to find someone's like, oh, this person is a professional dungeon master. They're already advertising themselves this. They have a website. They have this presence here. And so that's what prompted them to reach out to me.
It already looked professional at that point because you had all the parts.
And a lot of times I always tell people this, like, make sure it's easy to get a hold of you if you're looking for press.
Right.
Like make sure your DMs are open, make sure that people can message you anywhere possible, that you have an easy access email. And one day I just saw the email come through and I immediately responded. I was like, yeah, of course, I would love to talk.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that also blew up your bookings as soon as that article happened.
Yeah. It was, I think that fandom reached out first. And this is back when they owned D&D Beyond. And then Nintendo reached out. And those are, some of the really cool big clients. Facebook and Google as well. Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. So that took off shortly after the article because, I mean, from my perspective, when that article came out, I was still up here in Seattle, and this is kind of a hub for a lot of people, I find, and not only because Wizards of the Coast is here, but just it's a super nerdy city, and so that everyone was talking about that article. Yeah. Everyone's trying to become a pro DM, and everyone's trying to figure out what the appropriate rate is. So, I mean, we could go down the path of the pro DM, and I'm not so sure, or GM even, but I'm not so sure we want to go down that path necessarily, except for how it, except for how
everybody wants to know that.
I know, but I want to talk about specifically how it overlaps with Start Playing, because how the value of Start Playing is that, like you said earlier, it takes away so much of the back end work that a GM may not be experienced in. Not every GM went to business school or, project management or accounting. So what are some of the things that Start Play, can I say Start Play or do I have to say Start Playing?
Oh, you have to have that ing. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Okay. Startplaying.games. What are some of the things that it really adds and does for the GM?
Yeah. So a huge one is actually getting you in front of players. We spend, tens of thousands of dollars just advertising our games to players. So that's one of the things that GMs are always saying, like, wow, like my hardest thing was finding players. And that's because a lot of time, if you're looking for a game, people say, well, just go to Discord. Just go to Discord, like,
Right.
which is such the most unhelpful advice ever. Um, and the problem is, we did a lot of like research and talked to people like, how'd you find games before? Like, well, I'd go to Discord and then I'd maybe fill out like a Google form or talk to someone, and then like 3 to 5 weeks later, like everyone was able to get in the game, but then it fell apart like 2 weeks later, and you're like, wow, that sounds terrible. And some of the same things with Reddit. And so we're like, okay, well, getting in front of players is one of the most important things a pro GM needs. And so that's a major thing we help out with. We have thousands of people come to the site every day. Another thing is we ensure payment. So if someone tries to fraud a GM, then like we'll cover that payment out of our own pocket. If we can't get the player to charge, or the card didn't go through, things like that. On the same time, if the player feels like, hey, this GM charged me, but the game never happened, we'll investigate that too. And if that's true, like, we cover the player. So we build trust in the sense that like you don't have to worry about fraud when it comes to exchanging money. And that's one of the big things that like make a marketplace work, is building that trust.
I want to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. How often does something like that happen on the fraud side for player or GM?
Maybe 0.3%.
Okay.
Of it's very small. I mean, like out of was it as of like last week, our GMs have made over $7 million running games. It's wild.
That's amazing.
How long
I know,
have you guys
right?
been around
Dollar signs.
Dollar signs. Yeah, since 2020, September is when we launched.
So in 2 years, really 3 years almost, you guys
Yeah.
have created $7 million for professional GMs.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's like, and it's such a huge market, and really just starting right now, it feels like.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But yeah,
So
wait. Yeah, go ahead.
Do players get rated too?
No, so we don't rate players. I think there's a problem with the standard approach most people would explore on rating players. And we also I think out of all the reviews, we've had 150 negative reviews for GMs come through. Around 80% of those are weaponized. So, kind of unfactual, or someone is like purposely trying to like hurt a GM. So we have like a flag system. So the GM say, hey, can you review this? And then we open up an investigation to see like, hey, are these things true? And out of like that, the 150, like 80%, that's something like 130 of those actual reviews. And like it's people that are like going through and submitting like multiple times, just trying to get something through. And we knew that as far as review systems, like people will try to weaponize those. That's why we don't have currently a 5-star review system, because that also doesn't help make a decision. So we see them as recommendations. This is why I recommend this GM. This is why I had good time playing with them. We definitely want reviews to be helpful and not harmful. And so we're exploring more personalization for GMs to have like insights on players. Like, hey, this player often plays in horror games, and they also they have these badges because they've played in like 6 different types of systems. So we want to give like value rather than open doors for something that could be toxic if leveraged by a handful of people.
Can you sort based on, say, like age range, or like just like, I can imagine like, oh, I'm in my 30s. I want to play with people that are also mature and say in their 30s versus say an 18-year-old or something, right? Like, is there a way to search that way and categorize my game?
So there are a few options you can do. Right now, the only age range is like 18 and up. The big thing we notice though is people who join games with GMs who are really explicit on the adventures they're running are what make a good match. I've seen a lot of like match systems before, and I think they dive down a little too hard for the exact match. And when a GM is very clear on the type of adventures they're running, it draws the right group. And that is really where it shines. So if a GM can be really clear about like, hey, this is the type of games I run, this is the type of adventure I'm running, you'll get people who are like, oh, I'm in my 30s and I want to play this. We also get people that are in their like mid 20s that are like perfect for that group
Right.
because that play style or the adventure really calls to them and they want to participate in that.
Makes sense. So, how much can a pro GM really make doing this?
Let's see. I think I saw someone who says that by this year they're gonna try to push 6 figures. Wait, yeah, 100,000. They're trying to shoot for 100,000.
Whoa.
But the kind of the average, for like full time GMs is anywhere from like 40 to like 80,000 is kind of the range I'm seeing like the full time GMs take in.
And
But that's also good.
yeah, I was just what kind of hours is that for them, do you think, in just game time, not even prep time?
Yeah, so that I feel that's around 10 games a week is kind of the average full time GMs are doing. Between
Dang.
7 and 10. Now I knew one was doing 14, and she dialed back to 10. And that's also because like prep is different for every GM, and I feel when you become a pro GM, you try to figure out how to be efficient with your prep, but still make your games amazing.
Right.
And then there's also a number of GMs that they will run published material, but they know the published material so well that they can take any kind of curveballs that players throw. And so I know one GM, they were running like 7 Curse of Strahd games, but they were all vastly different, but they knew everything that was in the material and everything they added from like third-party resources, so they could run the game without having to really look at a lot of notes outside of what their players did.
Yeah, it's almost like being a teacher who's already got their lesson plan. They know how to teach that course. And then every year, once you figure it out, then you can teach that same grade every single year with different students, which kind of makes sense, right?
Tailoring it for those students, yeah.
But the follow-up to that
good.
is just how long does a paid session really last? And also, well, how long does a paid session really last for a GM? And also, how much are they charging?
Yeah. So GMs are charging anywhere from like $10 to $40 a session. That's the average price on the site is around $20 a session.
Is that per player?
Per player per session. And then the average game length is 3 hours. So most games are around 2 to 3 hour games on the site.
Yeah, sounds about a good time range for me. If I'm going to sit in front of my computer for 3 hours, that sounds appropriate.
I know, right? I mean, an hour at the bar is going to run me at least $25. I feel
at least,
yeah. Like, I mean, I go to Alamo Drafthouse to watch a movie, and I'm not leaving there under $50 because I'm going to have a burger, a beer, the movie ticket itself. So,
I think I remember hearing some marketing in the early days of Start Playing along those lines of, spend an evening online, you're going to spend less than you would out at the bar.
Yeah. And it's true.
I'll spend that much playing with my friends just because we're drinking, right? Or we're adding snacks or ordering in from a restaurant or something. Like, you probably would spend about the same amount just going to your friend's place, honestly. That's great. So, and it's all online, I'm assuming, right? Like, people are playing in like a Zoom room, or do you guys have your own platform for that, or how does that work?
So, I mean, we definitely let GMs decide like how those games are happening, but games are happening, Zoom, Google Meet, Discord, Roll, or Roll20, Foundry, like they're happening all over.
Gotcha. So any of the kind of VTT systems out there can be, you're not standardized or tell someone what to use, but the GM sort of creates and chooses the tools that work for them.
Exactly. Because, people always, GMs, that's one of the big questions I get asked. Every week I do this thing called the onboarding. And it's where I like tell GMs best practices, tips and tricks, insights, and a full overview of the site as a GM. And I always get the question, well, what VTT should I use? I'm like, well, what VTT can you run your best game ever with? That's the one. If you run games, if Theater of the Mind, you feel this is your great game and you don't really like VTTs, then that's how you should run your games. Because GMs shouldn't be aiming to attract every player. They should be aiming to attract the right players for their play style. And there's no such thing as there will always be more players than GMs. So it's not like, well, I need to get the most players. Like, no, like however you run your best game, if you continue to run your best game, you're going to grow in your player base.
On that note, what is so from my personal experience, I tried out Start Playing probably a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Bury the lead. Okay, I love this.
It's not a very long story, which is one of the reasons I didn't start it off with. But the game I wanted to run was Star Trek Adventures. And I was super excited to get that going. And I had already played with Chris and a couple other friends, and we'd done the starter set. And I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to take this out there. There's not a lot of games online. At the time, there was just one GM. Yeah. And he was running like 8 games that he had on the site. And so I was like, I'm going to throw one out there. And I was like, you know what? I'll do $5, per person just to get things started. And I set it out for like 3 weeks in advance. And I do not have a following online. I wasn't pushing it anywhere. And I just said, like, I wanted to see how this goes. And I didn't get any bites ultimately. So, and there's a lot of things that go into this as factors. And that's what I was hoping you could talk about, because I know a lot of it also comes down to the GM and how they push it to their following. And if they already have established people that they've played with. So what are some of the tips and tricks you suggest for GMs starting out on Start Playing?
All right, so the number one thing, and if you're a GM on Start Playing and you're listening to this, you already know what I'm going to say. You already know it. I say it every day to every new person that joins our Discord. Have you done the onboarding? And that onboarding is that call that people, there's a few other people on our team that also run them every week too. But this is our meeting where I give like the best tips and tricks. I'm like, hey, this is how you should write your description. This is what we've seen work in surveys. I also have a blog post on Start Playing too about like these, 22 tips. But it's everything from like the images you use to the titles you use to the description of your game. All these things definitely help lead towards getting a fully booked game. We've done the numbers, and if you have done the onboarding, your average time to get running a paid game is, I think, 15 or 16 days. If you haven't, it's somewhere I think 37 days for your first paid game. So it cuts that off in half. And then the retention that GMs have of players on the site is like 100% increase versus those who didn't do the onboarding.
How long is the onboarding?
It's about an hour.
So that sounds like a good investment for anybody looking to be a pro GM. 1 hour, and then you're going to basically more than double your likelihood of results.
Yeah. And it's with a bunch of GMs. It's like 30 GMs and me, and like I explain the tools, but there's also like some psychology stuff. Like when people write their game descriptions, you should write them like the back of a book, like you're reading the back of like a Sanderson novel or something like that, because you want to put first person prose or like character prose, I say, instead of player prose. So a great example of that, and I might be going on a tangent here, is you can have your player prose, which is like you and other players are going to try to uncover the evil plot that the council has put forth for the city and save it before its destruction. Rather, you want to do something that's like, you've always known the council was corrupt, but you never thought their blade would be pointed in your direction. Now, as time is losing itself, you have to save the city before it crumbles to the deceit and greediness of the council members. Like, one really tells you, the player, like, this is what your character is going to be experiencing. It gets you immersed. We've seen, even just like in surveys, how well that does.
And then there's like chills.
And that's the key to being a good GM, right? Is you don't just tell people, oh, as a player you can do this and this. You just go into it and start immersing them. And when you do that, people become immersed in your game, and so that makes a lot of sense in terms of the way you want to market it.
And GMs, it's more like GMs have these skills. They just need to be reminded, like, well, this point, they're like, oh yeah, and then it makes so much sense once you start putting it in practice.
This seems so very similar to dating online in a weird way. And I don't know if anyone's ever brought that to the table, but
I bring it up every time.
Yeah, it's very like a lot of guys don't have a problem with them. They have a problem with marketing, and they're not effectively marketing themselves in the online dating space. So that's why their time to date is so high. They need to change up their marketing strategy, get the right pictures, the right bio, and once you have these components, you wind up making results happen. So
sorry, Chris, before you move off on this point, Devon, where can people go to get that onboarding training?
Oh, okay. So the moment you join as a GM, you get an email with a link to it. And then every other future email you get that's GM related, I also at the bottom of them say like, have you taken this yet? Have you taken this yet? You should take it. And then once you finalize your profile and start playing, it invites you to the GM only Discord. And then you'll probably be asked that several times once you're in the Discord as well. Because you're like, wait, how do I do this? I'm like, have you taken the onboarding? GMs know that is like the inside joke is Devon. The number one thing he asks people is, have you taken the onboarding?
Okay, so it's built into the process already, quite thickly. That's great.
Yeah.
You're not hiding it.
I'm always pushing for more too. I'm like, but quickly though, we're talking about like online dating and things like that. There's this theory of self opt out, and it's something I say GMs should really push for. This woman did this kind of experiment where she wore the shirt that promoted her vegan ideology. I think it was like if you kill animals, I'll kill you, and then something vegan, something really really intense. But it was on her first image. So people that saw that had an ideology that did not match hers would immediately opt out. And so the amount of matches she had to amount of conversations that led to a date were higher because she was so clear about her own ideology. If you do that in a marketplace environment or with your games where you say like, hey, this is the type of game I'm having, people that don't enjoy those games are going to opt out. So when you make yourself appeal to as many people as possible, you're going to get a bad fit sometimes. But if you're very explicit in like, hey, this is the type of game I'm going to run, this is what to expect, this is the fun that I think is fun, this is how I run mine, then more likely you're to find people that are like, yep, I'm going to join this because this is the exact thing I want. And you get a higher matching. So that's why we do a lot when we tell people like really explain and push the type of way that you like to play, because you're going to have more long-term players that way.
Great point.
Yeah. I know you've got a full hour, and you said, I think 22 of these sort of keys to make a pro GM or get you results on Start Playing Games. You've covered a couple of these keys so far, and similar to the way a dating profile, the keys would be your picture, your profile, and your opening line.
Yeah.
I think we've got two of those. Could you give us one more of these keys?
Okay, let's see. Presentation is a big one. Okay. Instant book. Well, a big thing is I say never use logos or illustrations for your profile picture. Always use a picture of yourself, because people like to play games with people. Like the idea of gaming is you are creating a human connection and you're building like a mini community with people. So like your photo should be someone that people would want to play a game with. And so I would say like a well-lit, non-grainy photo that is inviting. We actually even did a test of photos that get the most clicks, and we had like the same GM, same profile, and one was like the moody, the like, I am the dungeon master, my fingers are pressed together because I'm conspiring against you. And the other one was like, someone just like laughing, holding up a die, like a one on a die. And it was like 3x the amount of click-through on the smiling GM. So that's a big one there too.
Despite the advice, beware the smiling GM. That profile actually worked.
There's two types of smiling GMs, though, right? Yeah, we have to be honest about that.
That's right. That's very cool. That's great. That's great insight.
And real quick, before we turn away from, because eventually we're going to start talking about the history, at least that's what I'd really like to start talking about, how this business came to be. But on the technical side, still for those aspiring pro GMs, what is the percentage that Start Playing tends to take?
Oh, currently we take a 10% cut from the GM booking.
Okay.
So if you run a $20 game, The GM gets 18 and we get 2.
Okay, and then that money, we've already established all the things it goes towards, like finding the players, helping them manage their games in a space. And because I remember recently, once again, Star Trek Adventures, I've been looking for a game to play in general, and I've been sent through the ringer of Discords. I'm on my 4th Discord group. Everyone, they've said like, hey, you got to go to this Discord if you want to find a group. And I'm like, okay, join it. And then I post in there, I'm a player looking for a game. You know what? Someone then tells me in a DM, if you really want to find a playable group and join it right now, it's this one. And I'm like, okay, fine. And everyone's been super helpful and super kind. So they've been awesome. But I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, Start Playing really has been a need for this.
Oh my gosh, we got 5 out of 7 seats starting tonight at 5. No, tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Ooh. For Star Trek?
Just saying. For Star Trek.
Oh,
there's actually, there's quite a few games going on right now.
Ooh.
There's one tomorrow too at 4 p.m.
Oh my gosh. Is it the same one guy that was doing this a year ago?
Jerry? No, this is Doug.
I don't remember the name, but I'll bet you it was Doug. That guy was like a machine.
Yeah, we got Doug, we got Aram, we got Jerry. Yes, I love Star Trek Adventures. It's such a fun system.
Yeah.
I'm excited to play the Dune version of it, actually, because it's the same guys, but just a different setting. So
yeah, that 2D20.
I'm reading through the Dune tabletop role-playing book right now, which is a beautiful book, and excited to potentially run my first game.
Adventures in the Imperium, right?
Yes, that's the one.
Game tomorrow morning, too.
Ooh, might be worth actually playing a couple before I do that.
I'm gonna load you up with a bunch of credits by the end of this podcast into your Start Playing accounts.
Love it. So, what are credits? What do you mean?
So we have people could buy gift cards, and me as one of the founders, I could just drop money in your account to spend on games.
Ooh, sweet.
If you ever find me in person, I do this. I was at the bar last night and met this guy. He's like, "Oh, everyone plays." Like, sign up for an account right now. I'll drop in 3 credits in your account if you want to start. Because that's essentially it's like my walking advertisement. Is if you find me in person, I'll give you credits to your Start Playing account.
Oh, be careful! You might get a lot of people hunting you down. So I heard on Nerdpreneur that you'll give credits.
But yeah, you just gotta find me. It's like a Waldo game.
In tabletop, this is the tabletop daddy, right?
I love it.
Credit daddy.
So I do want to get I'm curious. Going back, we got into what the logistics of it now, and it's clearly been building and grown. Was there a mental shift you had to make to turn this from being sort of a hobby into a business?
Yeah. So I've done a number of businesses in my many moves of life, but it really I decided I wouldn't do another endeavor unless I had a partner. And so I had an idea for what could have been Start Playing, maybe a handful of years before Start Playing started. But I was like, I can't undertake this. I need a partner. And having been a founder before, a startup or starting a small business, it's really hard when you're doing it solo. And when you have someone that you're doing it with, it's just a lot easier to not burn out and keep steam. And that's really why Start Playing has succeeded is my other co-founders and being able to build this with them.
How did you pick a good co-founder and know that was the right person? Because I'll just say from a context, I went through a very similar process of starting a lot of podcasts with myself or maybe the wrong people that weren't as committed or excited about it. But I was looking for someone that I call my spirit warrior. And I feel like when I found Frank, he checked off a lot of the boxes for the spirit warrior aspect of it. And I'm curious, how did you find that process to know you had found yours?
So, you all familiar with product founder fit?
No.
So, let's say that you all want to start a healthcare company, but you've never been in healthcare. That's a bad product founder fit. But let's say that you're a doctor and you've kind of left your practice and there's this healthcare idea you had, and you know a lot about the healthcare system, and you also know a lot about the body and healthcare in general. That's a great product founder fit. the person knows the product. And that's a big thing, especially when you're talking to VCs or you're talking to angel investors that like, oh, you know this space. Me and my co-founder, Nate, we are a great product founder fit. So it was March 17th, 2020. I had just turned off the news to San Francisco announcing that they were going to be in a lockdown for the next 3 weeks. And I got a phone call, and it was my now co-founder, Nate, and he was inquiring to hire me to be a GM for him and his friends. Nate comes from the player side. Him and his friends would rotate every month who was going to be the GM, and nobody wanted to do it. And then people who were assigned to do it would kind of bail on it, and they're like, "Let's just play a board game instead." But everyone wanted to play D&D, but nobody wanted to be the GM. And so Nate was in a startup accelerator called Y Combinator. And Y Combinator is this really prestigious startup accelerator, but he was doing it for like this fintech product that he actually didn't like. And he was thinking about, switching. And he had this idea, like, well, what about a hire a GM thing? And he wondered if that would even work. So he saw that in San Francisco, there's this guy named Devon who had all this press about being a pro GM. And so he called me to hire me to GM, but he also wanted to ask me a bunch of questions just to get an idea about the market and in the space. And we were on the phone for 6 hours that night. Like, he literally just called the number on the website, and I answered. I was like, I don't recognize this number. And we spent forever talking. I told him, I was like, hey, I was actually trying to build something like this. And he had these ideas. And so we talked forever. The next day, he called me up, and he said, do you want to build this startup with me? And I was like, absolutely. And that's really how it started. And I said, we have like 3 to 6 weeks of time on this lockdown where we can't go out. So I might as well work on a project, not knowing that would be 16 months. So when we first built we weren't expecting it to explode because of COVID. We were expecting that like in person would be a big thing. We learned so much in those first few months of building, an MVP product, a minimum viable product. But it really came from that one phone call, like answering the phone to an unknown number turned into a 6-hour phone call, which turned into 6 weeks of working on a product, which turned into, a $6.5 million investment from one of the largest VCs in the world.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that at one point, about that, when did you guys know that funding was something that you needed? Because as from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that funding is not what you started with. And that
Correct.
funding is more of that's from 2022?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 2 years after you guys started, right?
So that was our seed round. We did what's called an angel round, which is where you get like a handful of angel investors that invest in you. We also had a small investment from Y Combinator. When you are accepted into Y Combinator, you get around like $100,000, something around that much, to build your product. And that's so you can hire people, you can focus on it. You're not like doing another job. But I was still working. I was working 2 jobs. I was a founder at this, and I was doing my day job until November 2020, when we closed our last angel. And that was just like a small amount, so we could hire like 2 more people and really build out what the company's going to be. There's this thing called Demo Day at Y Combinator. That's where a bunch of angel investors and VCs watch the product pitch, and you get like a minute, I think maybe 2 minutes, to explain what your product is. And then if people like your product or they put a thumbs up, you get connected with them in an email afterwards. We were one of the most popular things out of that batch. Whoa. Because we also, everything else in that batch is like a SaaS product or like API integrations tool, so we were like, everyone was like, this is kind of cool. But no one knew if it had legs. So one of our angel investors was one of my first clients as a pro GM.
Whoa.
He hired me to drive up to Tahoe to run a game for him and his family because they were there on vacation. And I was like, it's gonna be really expensive, man. Like I'm gonna have a hotel room. I'm gonna have to drive out. He's like, whatever, I don't care.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. I was like, it'll be $1,200. He's like, you sure? You want to go a little higher?
I love that question. Yes. I love what Devon is saying here. He's talking about a customer who truly loves the service or product that you're providing, so they want to make sure that you're paid appropriately. Well, not everybody can do that. It's not in everybody's budget. But you know what is? A simple like and subscribe. So please go ahead and do that for this video. And while you're at it, visit us over on Twitter and Instagram, where we regularly post when new episodes go live. Inspiring quotes from past episodes, as well as what's cooking in the nerd kitchen. Nerd workshop. No, nerd shop. Nerd shop. Yes, I like nerd shop. All right, let's get back to the interview. We're going to go ahead and do random rolls here. So, like I was saying earlier, these are silly, less serious, more fun questions, and we'll do probably 6 of them here. They'll be pretty quick. So yeah, go ahead and roll the D100.
Let's see. There we go. We got 86.
86. Yeah. Oh, classic. If you could instantly learn to play another musical instrument moderately well, what would you choose?
This is a fantastic question. So thinking about it, do the breakdown, right? The moderately well guitar is really good. It's portable, played everywhere. But then you're the Wonderwall guy, and I don't want to be the Wonderwall guy. I would like to be the piano guy. I think if you could tickle the pearly whites, I think that's the vibe. That feels. I have a friend that does this, and he could just go up to a piano and just like play a little and kind of sing along. I'm like, that's too cool.
It's so cool.
And there are pianos in cool places too. It's always at like a nice restaurant or a cool hotel or some weird bar or someone's house, or, it's like, oh, look, there's a piano. And then you can be that guy.
The middle of the cruise ship.
Right?
But you don't have to carry it with you everywhere. You're right.
You don't want
to. A guitar guy, you always have to have, I'm going to bring out my guitar now.
This guy plays guitar. We could tell.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and roll another one, please.
All right. 56.
All right. What animal would you want as a familiar?
Ooh, dog. Absolutely. Be so sick.
Which kind of a dog? Which breed?
Okay. Well, I would probably say like a mutt. I had a mutt black lab growing up, and he was so cool. Oh my gosh. It was like a year ago I realized that like my parents lied to me they said like, oh, we gave him to the PG&E guy. I was like, what? Why would you do that? And like not realizing it's my parents saying like, your dog passed away and we just didn't want to tell you. And I was telling the story to my wife, and she's like, you gave it to the PG&E guy? I was like, wait. Oh my God.
Oh.
And I called them and like, yeah, we don't want to tell you this. Like, I was 17.
Oh.
Yeah, that creates a whole new like, well, Sparky's in a better place. Like, he's with the PG&E guy. It's like, okay, so wait, what happened to the goldfish? The goldfish was with the PG&E guy too, you said.
Yeah. Why does the Pacific Gas and Electric man have my dog?
Oh my God.
Well, for Californians, that's a specific reference because they keep burning everything.
Yeah.
Would it be a big dog or one you could carry with you?
I got to be able to carry him with me.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Like I want to be like hit my chest and he jumps up and I grab medium size. We're talking 35 pounds.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, roll another, please.
39.
Did we get that?
Okay. No, he rolled 38 last time. Okay. 39. If you were a student at Hogwarts and you needed to get a pet like all students do, what would it be and what would its embarrassing quirk be?
Oh, it's got to be a dog, right? And I think the quirk is he has a voice that just doesn't fit. Actually, I guess they don't have talking animals, do they? Well, let's say he's talking. He's talking, but what he says is never what he means. So it's just kind of like a radio kind of, he's just meandering. Sounds kind of like an old man, kind of just muttering to himself as he walks around, but it's actually not his thoughts.
It's kind of a Bumblebee character from Transformers.
A Bumblebee pup.
Yeah, nice. I
really want a dog right now. I can't.
I
have
can
one in my
tell.
apartment,
Yeah, 2 in a row, man.
I really want a dog.
The energy is strong.
3.
What is your favorite snack item to bring to a nerdy get together?
Ooh, pizza. It's not a snack, but I think pizza is the ultimate breaking bread food. It's meant to be
Made of
shared.
bread.
It's designed to be shared. The logo for Total Party Chill is a slice of pizza. Because I feel like pizza's so intrinsic to being around a table and like playing and breaking bread. I think it's one of the best foods ever designed. I went all the way to Italy just to confirm it, and it is.
So what pizza toppings do you pick for a party of many people?
Well, if you got vegetarians, you do like cheese and mushroom. If you got omnivores, I'm a classic pepperoni guy. But I'm not a pizza elitist. If you want to put pineapple on yours, go for it. All right. Listen, whatever makes I'm a pizza enthusiast. Whatever makes you happy with your pizzas, I'm gonna support.
Love it.
All right,
One more.
last one.
97.
Dude.
Does the list even go that high? Thank goodness. Oh, well, we can't do that.
We already asked you this one. It was
Okay.
what is your definition of a nerd? But anyway.
Yeah. All right. 63.
Oh, okay. All right. Would you rather die from Gary Gygax's zombie eating your brain or being crushed under a ton of dice?
Ooh. Okay. A ton of dice. I think a ton of dice. I think. Well, no. Probably the brain. I think I'll probably die quicker with the brain.
Yeah, because having a ton of D4s, I'm just imagining D4s because they're the daggers, literally. That's a slow and painful.
That's the death by 100 cuts kind of vibe.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas at least you get to meet Gary Gygax in this other one, right?
Oh, it's his zombie. I thought it was like a zombie. Oh my god. Okay.
Oh yeah, fair. That does sound like it's one that he
I was like,
owns.
this is like one of the zombies he designed. I was like, what zombies did Gary make that are so terrifying?
No, it's Gary Gygax as the zombie coming back to eat your brain.
Oh my gosh, yeah, but it'd make a great obituary.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's in a world where the Green Lantern Corps, like the Black Lantern, has come back and he's brought all the dead.
Right, like being crushed by dice. That sounds like a like dumb ways to die kind of a highlight.
Yes,
like
that
like a Darwin
show.
Award. So being like, no, it's a zombie. Dude got killed by a zombie. You can't hate on that. You got killed by a zombie.
At least either way, you die the way you live.
Well, let's
All
go
right.
ahead and switch things over to switch things over to rapid fire. First one, right out of the gate, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Ooh, Trek.
Excellent.
Yoda or Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan.
Favorite Star Trek captain?
Cisco.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
DS9.
Yeah, I could
That's
go
a
on a
good
tangent,
choice.
but I won't right there. Yeah, that was the correct answer. Very good.
Zombie apocalypse. Zombie apocalypse weapon of choice.
Spear.
Good call. Good
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, you need that length.
You need the distance. Keep them at a distance. Yeah.
Favorite race to play in World of Warcraft? Because I'm betting you did.
Ooh, you know what? Honestly, I don't even know what they all are, but I'd probably be like an elf or something. Like I something that isn't this. Like I'm the big burly guy, so like I'm like I'll be like a little elf or a little halfling guy.
The Night Elves were the most popular. When WoW broke, it was just everyone. 2/3 of the Alliance people were Night Elves. It was nuts.
Yeah.
I really think that because what's so funny is you want to play the elf because you have the big like dwarven beard, and funnily enough, the last thing I ever want to play is an elf, and I think it's because I can't grow facial hair. I'm always like,
also
give me the orcs, give me the dwarves. I want someone who can get some of that that hair.
I'm 6'3" too, so I always play little guys. Like it's one of the classic things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 6'4", so I'm like dwarf, halfling, gnome, perfect. All right. How many cats is too many cats?
3.
Fair.
Well,
I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm thinking like my apartment life.
Yeah, I mean, even one is a little too much for me, but three is like pushing it.
given
Two is great. They got friends. Yeah.
given the recent Spider-Man movie with all of the different actors, which one is your favorite? Or which one do you think is the best? Maybe that's a different question, but The best one, in your opinion?
I think my favorite one though is actually Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse.
He's great.
That's kind of been my favorite. But out of the
Yep.
three, Tom Holland does knock it out of the park.
He really does.
Yeah.
Dune or Mad Max?
Mad. Oh no, Dune.
Yes,
Dune.
that is
Yeah.
the correct answer.
After seeing all the Mad Maxes, Dune.
Yeah, Mad Max, there's like 2 really good ones.
Yeah.
Do you think ping pong is a sport?
Yes.
Mm.
It's on ESPN Ocho. It's a sport.
Tupac or Biggie?
Tupac.
Being on the West Coast, that makes sense.
I have to.
You can't say anything if you're living in Cali.
Firefly, was it overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Overrated post-mortem.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely flew under the radar while it was airing.
Yeah.
Is there any subscription you can't live without?
Oh, my shows, my stories. I'm like my abuela, man. I go home and I just gotta put on all my story. I just watch. My wife doesn't charge. I thought for the longest time that I was paying for our utilities, and she's like, "Oh, I don't put them on it because I know you have all the subscription services." And then I started counting them up. I got like $130 in. Like I got Peacock, Netflix, HBO Go, Apple TV, Hulu. You name it, I got it. I think I even have Tubi and Crackle.
Are you watching that much TV to use them? Because it doesn't sound like you have the time.
So I like usually in the evening when I do deep work, I watch a lot of stuff while doing like getting back to emails and such. I always have something on the background. I might have ADHD. I'm not quite sure, but I consume a lot of content. If it's not that, then it's like an audiobook.
I see. Yeah. I can't. My brain can't do that. But my partner, that's how her brain works.
I can't be left with my own thoughts.
That's why Frank is my spirit warrior, because I work the same way you do with my I always have either like a football game on in the background or some Netflix show, or I put on one of my favorites is to put on Lord of the Rings, since I've seen it so many times. I'll just like, and they're nice and long. You can get a lot of work done during a Lord of the Rings movie.
I gotta say, Chris, it's Creative Warrior. It's Creative Warrior. It's 2023, man.
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's the thing. I can't rewatch things by myself. I can only rewatch things if I'm showing a new person to it. That's probably why I get through so much. I couldn't watch Lord of the Rings by myself. I'd be like, I know this. I've seen this. I need to watch a new thing.
Totally. Got to share it with somebody. On that note, totally unrelated, but your favorite chip flavor?
Ooh, jalapeno.
Oh yeah. Now, actually spicy jalapeno though, because I recently had a pepperoncini flavor that was like not spicy.
Yeah, no, get that out of here. I don't eat that trash.
Nah, it's a mess. Get it out.
If you could fly or turn invisible, which one would you choose?
Absolutely fly. Be so sick.
That is the correct answer.
Yep. Alignment.
What kind of sneaky stuff you up to being invisible?
Yeah, right. Yeah. What are you doing?
I also think if you had invisibility, if you had invisibility, and if everyone could make that choice, in a world where people could either turn invisible or fly, I think there'd be so much regulation about people who could turn invisible. Your life would be so screwed up. Whereas if you just learn to fly, you have to learn some new traffic rules. That's it, and you're good.
Yeah, right? Dude, flying is so sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a guy who said he wanted to be invisible. He was a new dad, though. He just wanted time to himself.
Exactly.
It was very good. Now, of course, every role player has a typical alignment that they gravitate towards. What is yours?
Goodness. So I would say, actually, I'd like to use the old Marvel RPGs alignment, which is responsibility. And they had like the different, like, like this is not Batman's, this is Iron Man's, this is Spider-Man's, and one of Spider-Man's was responsibility. And I think that is the one that I hold to. Like when you are responsible, when you kind of like pledge something, you want to uphold that. And I see that more than I see laws. Like of course you have to follow laws, but like what is the responsible thing to do?
That's really good. I've never heard that, but I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah.
That's
Should have a little plug for the Marvel RPG system.
Yeah.
It's like the old one. It's like the one from the 90s.
wow.
Yeah.
Alignment systems were always kind of a cool aspect to these different tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, I want to get you back with us so we can talk about alternative tabletop role-playing games. Like, that was one of the things that you and I first started talking about.
Yeah.
And we could do a much smaller episode where we just like alternatives that people who are potentially leaving D&D looking for something different. And of course, we can talk about how it's available on Start Playing. But I really want to not only learn for myself, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that really want to see what are the other ones out there. What's
so
best for me?
There's so many cool systems. And like, because the thing is, a lot of people, they try to make D&D fit like an idea, but there's so many games you're like, oh my gosh, this fits the fiction. This does so well. And when you start playing it, it becomes fun all over again. It's like, oh, when you start learning new games, it feels so good.
Yes, because they have to bring their own thing. Like Star Trek Adventures, they've done it where you feel like you're actually in an episode. It is so good at feeling like I'm on a ship. I'm firing the phasers. I'm down there being the diplomat. It's great.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, Devon. This was such an awesome interview. We got so many great insights, and I can't wait for people to hear it. Where can people find you, support you, and start playing games?
Yeah. So you can find Start Playing Games for all your groups, games, and game master needs at startplaying.games. And if you want to see more about me and Total Party Chill, you can find me on Twitter, Devon Chulick. And then you can find everything you need about Total Party Chill at totalpartychill.com.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. And as always, everybody, keep it nerdy.
Thank you for listening. And if you'd like to get an ad-free, unedited version of this episode, join us over on Patreon and become a member of the board. You can join other amazing people like Anthony Antonellis, I hope I'm saying your name right, Kinchi, and Glenn Smith. So head on over there. The link is in the description below. But if that's not in the budget, totally get it. Go ahead and leave a comment on this video. And while you're at it, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review there. Those pod gods love that shit. All right, thank you, and as always, keep it nerdy.